Hello.
Yes, tell her.
Hello. Aisha, நான் just ஒரு time என்னோட screen share பண்ணி பாத்துக்கிறேன்.
Yes, please. Play either one of the music videos or dancing. Those are the most problematic videos. So.
Yeah. So நான் first video தான் play பண்றேன். இல்ல second one. Okay, you just play the first one, right? I'll play the second.
Second or third you can play.
Yeah.
அன்புராஜ் இல்லையேடா ஹர்ஷா எனக்கு யாருன்னே தெரியாதுமா.
I'll just show her face. One second.
ஹர்ஷானே எனக்கு.
But Sindhu, I think she left Sindhu. She's
Okay, போயிட்டாங்களா?
Yes.
Okay, fine. She left, it seems. We don't know who she is, but she left. It's okay. We don't not sure yaarna because Jayashrika just confirmed terla.
நான் சொன்னது அர்ஷியா.
Okay.
Sindhu, no volume, Sindhu.
One second.
In Arvind, the singer. This is Arvind Raghuram, the guitarist. Behind the camera is Rupa Arvind. She's a wonderful director and producer. She's also the camerawoman. I really hope you like our song. We're going to sing Pada the Patala. I hope you enjoy. We're amateurs, so don't mind if we make any mistakes.
Lag irundha enna?
Yes.
There's some bit of a lag, but I think that's the regular video stuff.
Okay, now so one video, I mean, I'll just play the other song also. Maybe let's see if that's the thing. Then maybe it's from my end. But okay, it's a backup only, right? So worst case, this is what we should use.
Good morning.
Good morning, Professor Ravi.
Yeah.
Good
Can
morning,
I
sir.
try sharing my screen once?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hello, Ravi. Good morning.
Morning.
How are you?
Fine, Johnny.
Okay, great.
I have a pun for you.
We can see your screen, doctor.
Yeah? Okay.
Yes, all good.
Where's Prasanna?
She's down in the kitchen.
You should have called her.
Yeah, she will come.
So, must be busy.
Ah, yes. You are
You are-
safe in New Zealand?
Very
Yes,
safe,
very-
actually. Yeah, so
Yeah,
far.
you are in a very safe country.
Yes.
I think you must be really fighting hard against COVID.
Yeah. Especially last 4 weeks, Bangalore has gone out of control.
No, but for a population like that, I think we have done better than what US is doing.
Yeah.
So,
For India, the only comparison now is US for consolation.
yeah, it's sad actually. We're looking forward to your lecture because I think it will throw some insights. Here we are dealing with a lot of mental depressions because there's so many suicide cases in New Zealand, and that is the worrisome part of it. Especially in quarantine, Australia, I believe it's like a prison. So, they go with guns. The security, the army is taken over, so they go with guns when people are in quarantine or isolation. So people are going through.
Yeah,
a lot
very
of-
strict, very strict regiment. Yeah.
So good. We'll hear you soon.
Okay. So I'll join you soon. Okay.
Yes. Bye.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe நான் இன்னொரு வீடியோ ட்ரை பண்றேன்.
Yeah, is it?
Jay is come. Jay.
No, she's logged in, but she's not joined us. She's just
Okay. Who was the girl who also sang? A lot of them sang very well with this. Yeah, in the patina.
Hey, தமிழன் யார் பாடுனது?
Ishita auntie.
Neighbors.
Neighbors, ex-neighbors.
Oh, she sang very, very well.
Yes.
Right. Sudhir uncle oda
Daughter, is it? Okay.
ஓகே அங்கிள் பாட்டு கேட்டிருக்காங்க நினைக்கிறேன் லிசனிங் டு தி சாங்ஸ் போலக்கு
Yeah, all of them really, it was
Yeah.
very nice.
அந்த இன்னொன்னு வந்து ரவியோடைய வைஃப் காயத்ரி
Gayatri, நான் சொன்னேன், I introduced him. We knew most of them.
பழைய பாட்டெல்லாம் பிடிக்குமே
ஆ? இது?
எனக்கு பழைய பாட்டெல்லாம் பிடிக்குமே
ரொம்ப பிடிக்கும்.
just
Nice அது. தருண் அக்கா
எங்கம்மா நான் பார்க்கவே இல்லையே ஷோ.
இருக்கேன்
Thank you, Dr.
Hello.
Dashi.
ശ്രീമന്നാരായണൻ ശ്രീപാദമേ ശരണം കമലപ്രിയാ കമലേക്ഷണ.
All good, Sindhu. This is perfect.
Okay. Fine, I think this is enough, I guess. Now just on the live link மட்டும் check பண்ணிடுறோம் ஒரு வாட்டி.
Muthu, you'll do an auto mute, is it, for everybody?
Yes, Akka.
Yes, Aishu will take.
Aishu will mute everybody.
Okay.
எங்க ராஜேஷ் எங்க முத்து?
He's coming, uncle. கொஞ்சம் வரைஞ்சிட்டு இருக்காரு நிறைய காலையில இருந்து. He's more into drawing nowadays.
It's so long after you sing
Sure.
Tarun. Really grown up, illa Tarun. Tarun, I've seen him as a baby.
ஆமா
My God. I think I don't know whether he...
அன்னைக்கு டெல்லியில உங்க வீட்ல
Corona-naala he's not able to cut his hair also.
That's a story, global story.
Do you recall all that memory incidences in Delhi?
ஞாபகம் இருக்கு கௌஷிக் அண்ணாவோட.
Kaushik.
Where's Kaushik? Kaushik is there? Or
Early
is
morning for him, but I've sent him a reminder.
Okay.
Karthik will be there. And here I'll share one picture of Rian for you.
Okay.
This time. Let's see if I can share.
Sindhu, no problem with the live link. Like you were able to log in directly.
Yeah.
Oh, Sindhu is tested, one live link.
She doesn't have a earphone.
ஐஷோக்கா ஆக்சஸ் கொடுக்கணும்க்கா நீங்க அந்த இதுக்கு அந்த டிரைவ் ஃபோல்டர் நீங்க மேல அனுப்பிச்சீங்கல்ல all the files
live link
ஒரு பேக்கப் அம்மா
I sent to Mukandi's Mutaka's Banco account.
for files.
வாய்ஸ் என்னமோ கொஞ்சம் இதாகுதுப்பா. It's vibrating.
ஆமா, அதுல இருந்து எடுத்துட்டு இருக்கோமா?
அதுல இருந்து டவுன்லோட் பண்றதுக்கு is asking for access.
Yeah. Maybe we should.
Yes,
Is it clear now?
Now it's better. Maybe use your headphone.
ஆனா ரெண்டு பேர் இருக்காங்க, so
we should have one.
we'll have to share your earphones.
Maybe. Yeah.
ஒரு நிமிஷம்.
Raghu, do we have anyone who's joined the live link? Do we have a number right now?
Yeah. So there are roughly about 100 logins.
Wow.
Already, is it? Okay.
The link is live anyway. We can check it.
Sure.
Yeah,
Going
I'll
live,
check
yeah.
it. At least for my end, it's fine. Like maybe I should also check once if possible.
Sure thing. Yeah.
கொஞ்சம் slight lag இருக்கு, but I think it's like something that's unavoidable நினைக்கிறேன்.
No, webinar always is about 20 seconds, 30 seconds.
Yeah, that's exactly what
Oh.
I'm seeing as a lag. I don't think it's a problem, right?
Yeah. So video conference is faster than webinar. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Arun, do you want?
Raghu, I've also shared the backup with you.
Okay, drive for-
Just in
Please
case.
share it to both the email addresses that I have provided you.
Yes, I actually got a. Is Kishore spelling right? Because I got an error from Kishore spelling.
KISHOR.
இது அப்படியே ஒரு download.
KISHOR.
Sure.
Not E. Just OR.
Got it.
Yeah. At clubclass.com.
She's a coordinator.
Yeah, I should do this.
Yes, I've sent it to Kishore as well.
All right. So you're all set. So whenever you're ready, you can go live. It's already going on. It's
Right.
already on the web. So
Perfect. I think we should start by about 9:30. We'll start the preamble.
yeah, 9 minutes to go.
Sounds good.
Nina. Look at him.
Hi,
Yes.
you're muted, Prabha.
Good morning.
Everybody-
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Everybody muted and booted,
Welcome.
Another, sorry?
Team leader, welcome.
Muted and booted.
Hi Jayesh, morning.
Hi, Ravi. எப்படி இருக்க?
Fine.
VC-னா என்ன அர்த்தம்? எங்க இருந்த நேத்து?
Video conference.
அட. அங்க போய் chancellor ஆக போறேன்னு நினைச்சிருந்தேன்.
For Ravi, everything starts with a V. He's going viral.
Morning, Dr. Ravi.
Morning.
Hi, Jay.
Hi.
Hi, good morning, mate.
Morning.
Akka, good morning. Akka, by name Ms. Ruchita இருக்காங்க அக்கா.
ஆமாமா, okay.
Okay. Another 7 minutes more. All the best for target. For thumbs up.
Yeah, all the best.
Thank you.
Jayashree aunty,
Yes, it makes a point.
That light behind you is a bit too bright.
On the light.
Amma.
I know, I'll move this side.
Yeah, maybe that should be off. That's better. That's better.
கொஞ்சம் lift பண்ணனும்ல?
It's your image is very clear, so you don't need that light. Auntie, that's perfect. No. Sure.
Where's Prasanna, Ravi?
She's there down in the kitchen.
Sir. I think she's logged in.
Yeah, I see her name.
Yeah.
Amlu?
Jayashree, good morning.
Hi, morning. Everything?
I'm fine, Ma. How are you?
Fine.
Yeah, I've logged in. Don't worry.
Great.
Hi, Prasanna garu, etla unnaru?
Hi, Malika. How are you?
Good.
You're looking very smart.
Avuna, seri manchide.
ரொம்ப ஹைட்டோ
இல்ல ஹைட் இன்னும் கொஞ்சம் கரெக்டா correct little more
हाँ सब्जी धो दे फिर उसको नमक के पानी में डाल के धो दे ठीक है फिर
Aishu,
Yes,
to
Anand.
get a feel for the participants thing, we have to log in into that link, is it?
Yes, Sindhu and I just did. All good with that.
Okay.
Raghu, I had a small doubt. What's the maximum capacity on the speakers list right here?
100.
100, is it? Okay. Thank you.
No, Raghu, with 100, Veriko, it won't upset our Tradu?
No, nothing. It will go on smoothly till 100.
Okay, yeah. No, I think there's been a small step. Some guests have joined on this.
Yeah.
Which is okay. And we won't be too big.
Yeah, we have 21 people right now on this.
That's what.
That wouldn't affect the bandwidth or the video lag connection.
No, nothing.
Otherwise, we can request them to come on that.
No issues. They have 79 more to go.
Fine. Okay, sure.
Just told to check the text. Good morning.
நமக்கு அன்னைக்கு இதுவாகாது
Three minutes to program.
Thank you, Raghu. Yes.
What is the protocol? Should the videos be off or on during the program? Is it better to be off? I think
Sorry,
so.
I was on mute. Yes, and now we're switching off all videos. Only the speakers will be on video.
Okay, so videos and audios will be.
Yes.
Oh, good morning. 10 o'clock.
Good morning. Good morning. Video on பண்ணிட்டீங்களா?
Morning, everyone. I have a humble request to all the non-speakers on this particular call. I'm going to give given a link in the chat box. If you all could log in using that link, because the maximum capacity on this particular Zoom call is about 100. So just so that we don't have any issues with bandwidth, if I can request all of you to join the link that I've posted on the chat box, that will be great. Just the non-speakers on the call. Thank you.
Check my door.
Thank you very much for helping us out with this. Thank you. Hi, Sridhar. Hi. Appa, appuram join பண்றாங்களா?
Yeah, Appa is coming up.
சரி சரி, okay. I spoke to Krishnan uncle yesterday. He said he'll join.
Oh, okay, okay.
Ram, good morning.
Good morning, good morning.
Because I'm muting everyone else.
Mostly இப்படிதான் பண்ணுவோம்.
Then you're muting everyone else, so she'll be the only one.
மேல பண்ணிட்டு வேண்டியப்ப கூட she'll pull off the chair and sit. அப்ப என்ன அது ஏதாவது பண்றது இது பண்றது something will be happening.
Morning, Josh. Bharti here.
Hi, Bharti.
How are you?
Fine, thank you. How are you?
Fine. Going on as usual.
There is no other way of replying that question nowadays.
ரொம்ப நாளைக்கு அப்புறம் இன்னைக்கு ட்ரெஸ் பண்ணிட்டு மேக்கப் எல்லாம் போட்டு உட்கார்ந்து
ரொம்ப நாளைக்கு அப்புறம் புடவை கட்டுறதே புதுசா இருக்கு.
ஆமா, இன்னைக்கு I couldn't even get into my blouse. Forget about புடவை.
Morning, Doctor. Muthu, this side.
How are you?
Fine, Doctor.
நல்லா இருக்கேன்.
Missing all our target fund, Doctor.
அது கூட இல்லாம போயிடுது இப்போ.
30 ஆயிடுச்சு.
Time ஆமா 9:30 exactly.
It's 9:30.
9:30, ma'am.
Raghu, do we have a rough estimate of the number of people who've joined us on the live link now?
So we have more than 150 people who have joined it.
On the live link, is it?
Yeah.
No, I just checked out 220.
Yeah.
Morning, Doctor. Muthu, this side.
How are you?
அவனுங்க ஏதோ தப்பு பண்ணிட்டாங்கம்மா. நம்ம
So it's actually 220.
220, is it? Okay, thank you.
அது இல்ல related தான் நான் என்ன faculty.
They are doctors. They are the company people who have given their contacts. Confirm all that.
इधर दावा खाया?
It's 272.
Sure. Thank you, Raghu. Yes.
A very warm welcome to all of you who've joined us today. As we wait for our guests to join in, we have some incredible music and dance performances from members of our family. We hope you enjoy them.
हो तुम गुमसुम हो क्यों तुम गुम क्यों हो तुम आँखों से छलके हो गम होठों से मुस्काने गुम रूठे हो हरदम कह दो क्या बच्चे हो तुम संगत्तिल पाड़ाद कविதை अंगत्तिल यार तंदது சந்தத்தில் மாறாத நடையுடன் என் முன்னே யார் வந்தது சங்கத்தில் பாடாத கவிதை அங்கத்தில் யார் தந்தது गुमसुम हो क्यों तुम गुम क्यों हो तुम भारत हमको जान से प्यारा है सबसे न्यारा गुलिस्ता हमारा है सदियों से भारत भूमि दुनिया की शान है भारत माँ की रक्षा में जीवन कुर्बान है तमिळा तमिळा नाळे नम नाळे तमिळा तमिळा नाडुम नम नाडे என் வீடு தாய் தமிழ்நாடு என்றே சொல்லடா என் நாமம் இந்தியன் என்றே என்றும் நில்லடா भारत हमको जान से प्यारा है सबसे न्यारा गुलिस्ता हमारा है
Hi, folks. A very good morning to all of you who just joined us today. I have a small request for all the non-speakers on this call. Could I request all of you to join the link that is given on the chat box? I will type it out again. For all the non-speakers on this particular Zoom call, may I request all of you to join the webinar using the link that I've sent in the chat box? This is just to help us have no technical issues on our end.
This is a very special request from all of us. Thank you very much for complying. Thank you.
Thank you.
Arvind, the singer. This is Arvind Raghuraman, the guitarist. Behind the camera is Rupa Arvind. She's a wonderful director and producer. She's also the camera woman. I really hope you like our song. We're going to sing Pada the Patala. I hope you enjoy. We're amateurs, so don't mind if we make any mistakes.
Yep.
மேலாடு தென்றலெல்லாம் பூவாடை வந்ததே கையோடு வளையலும் ஜல் 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 கண்ணோடு பேசவா சொல் சொல் சொல்
பாடாத பாட்டெல்லாம் பாடு வந்தார் காணாடு கண்களே காண வந்தார் பேசாத மொழியெல்லாம் பேச வந்தார் தென் பாவை நெஞ்சிலே ஆடு வந்தார் தென் பாவை நெஞ்சிலே ஆடு வந்தார்
அச்சமானமா இன்னும் வேணுமா அஞ்சினால் நெஞ்சிலே காதல் தோன்றுமா மெச்சமா மீதமா இந்த நாடகம் மென்மையே பெண்மையே வா வா வா
பாடாத பாட்டெல்லாம் பாட வந்தார் காணாத கண்களே காண வந்தார் பேசாத மொழியெல்லாம் பேச வந்தார் தென் பாவை நெஞ்சிலே ஆடு வந்தார் தென் பாவை நெஞ்சிலே ஆடு வந்தார்
நிலவிலே நிலவிலே செய்தி வந்ததா உறவிலே உறவிலே ஆசை வந்ததா மறைவிலே மறைவிலே யாடராகுமா அருகிலே அருகிலே வா வா வா
பாடாத பாட்டெல்லாம் பாட வந்தார் காணாத கண்களே காண வந்தார் பேசாத மொழியெல்லாம் பேச வந்தார் தென் பாவை நெஞ்சிலே ஆட வந்தார் தென் பாவை நெஞ்சிலே ஆட வந்தார்
Thank you. हल्की है हल्की कल रात जो शबनम गिरी अरे अखियां मखियां भर गई कल तो हाथ पे डब डब गिरी पहली पहली बारिश की छींटे पहली बारिश भीगे हो नगीला 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 ओ नजरे नजरे नगीला ओ नगीला 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 ओ नजरे नजरे नगीला ओ खुलती गई तिलक रात भर बरसी कभी बनाए खूब सदाए थी सब याद की मर्जी उड़ी 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 ख्वाबों की उड़ी
ये भी न जाने वो भी न जाने नैनों के रंग नैना जाने मिला जो संग तेरा उड़ा पतंग मेरा हवा में होके मलंग जग की कोई रीत न जाने मैं तो बस तेरी हुई दीवानी मिला जो संग तेरा उड़ा पतंग मेरा हवा में होके मलंग मैं छुड़ाई घर बार मेरा ओ मखना वे मखना तू ही है संसार मेरा ओ मखना वे मखना ये पागल सा है प्यार मेरा ओ मखना वे मखना मैं छुड़ाई घर बार मेरा ओ मखना छुड़ाई
A very good morning, a very good afternoon, and a very good evening to all of you joining us from across the globe. I'm Aishwarya, a grandniece of Professor Arkad Gajraj. On behalf of the entire Target family, it's my absolute privilege and pleasure to welcome all of you to the 16th Professor Arkad Gajraj Memorial Oration. Target was initiated in August 2005 as a tribute to Professor Gajraj by his dear students. Target 2020 is the 16th edition, although in a slightly different format than what we are used to. To say that we are thrilled to organize this virtually is an understatement. Our theme this year is based on an immensely important and timely discussion around COVID-19, lessons learned, challenges, and opportunities. We are honored to have some very esteemed speakers to enlighten us on this. On behalf of the entire Target family, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to them. Professor Ravi, who will be delivering the oration, Professor Abraham Verghese, our chief guest, and Dr. V. Ramasubramanian, our guest of honor. I'd also like to take this opportunity to express my profound gratitude to all doctors, nurses, and workers who are serving so selflessly on the front lines of this health crisis. With no further ado, may I now request our very own Dr. Jayashree Gajraj, Chairperson, Target Foundation and Kausalya Gajraj Trust, to welcome this virtual gathering.
Mercy, compassion. How do I go full screen, Ma? How do I go full screen? A very good morning to all of you. As Aishwarya has said, this is under very different circumstances that all of us are meeting today. But I am happy that we have been able to continue what we started 15 years ago, the Target Orations and the Target Program. We have with us today many senior members of the medical fraternity. We've always had the guidance and patronage of Dr. Kakal Subbarao from Hyderabad, Dr. Rahalkar from Pune. Many other senior people have been with us throughout every program. It will be wrong of me not to mention some, but definitely I would like to mention Professor K.V. Thiruvengadam, Professor Rajashekaran, and two very close friends of my father, Krishnan uncle, that is Colonel Krishnan, and Venketu uncle, Venkat Subramaniam from Chennai. If you will just give me a few minutes to share my screen, we will start off. This year, we have actually started with this year, we thought the COVID infection is the current topic. And we have been very fortunate in having Professor Ravi, Professor Abraham Verghese, and Dr. Ram Subramaniam with us. So very happy that they've all joined us today. We will go through the program. I will be telling you the details shortly. But a little bit about the family and about Professor Gajraj itself. He was born in Mandalay in 1925 in Burma, and then moved to India in 1941 during the Pearl Harbor bombing. He subsequently joined Madras Christian College and then went on to do his MBBS in Stanley Medical College. My mother, Professor Mrs. Kausalya Gajraj, was born in 1928 in Chennai. My father was basically a self-made person, extremely disciplined, having grown up in a boarding school throughout. He is one of those who had to do everything right. And I'm happy to say that my mother complimented him in every way. He had to dot every I and cross every T. Nothing less was possible for him. He had a great passion for teaching, which was evident even until the very end of his life. He always loved people around him. And our home in I block number 3, Anna Nagar, was always full of people, full of guests, family and friends. One thing he has always taught me is that if you have to give without expectation. And that is something that has stood me in good stead even today. Target, I think, is the best tribute that we can pay to both of them and to their lives. Oh, why is my screen? I'll go after this. Sorry, I think as doctors, we are technically challenged.
No, kindly click on your slide and move, madam.
Yeah, I've got it. Yeah. A warm welcome to Professor V. Ravi, known to most of us as Virus. And of course, he did have another nickname when we were in college, but I will not mention that here. But I'm extremely happy, an alumni of Madras Medical College, batch of 1973. Thank you very much, Ravi, for joining us on this program and delivering the oration. Our association goes back all the way. He was my busmate. I would get in at Anna Nagar and he would board the bus at Shenoy Nagar. Much later, we realized that we had common interests in gardens and flowers. And every July, he would send me beautiful flowers of Brahma Kamalam from his garden. I met his wife, Prasanna, when we went on the Alaskan cruise and had a lovely time together. We shared many good and not so good times together. When I say not so good, when Ravi's sister was down with infective hepatitis, I was on the ICU several years ago. But that moment is important in his life, I know, because he committed himself to virology at that moment. Ravi, we are extremely proud of you and your achievements. Thank you. Professor Abraham Verghese, as he is known as Abe to most of us, again, we are very proud to say that he belongs to the 1973 batch of Madras Medical College. We did not know him that well when he was actually in college, but subsequently, we've heard so much about him and are so proud that we have been associated with him. Perhaps we could say our claim to fame is Professor Abraham Verghese. What is more important is he has very willingly helped a lot of doctors who have gone from Chennai to settle down in the US and also to gain jobs. We are proud of his contribution to medicine and literature. After our Alaskan cruise, we visited his beautiful home in California, where we had a lovely evening, a beautiful dinner, lunch, evening and dinner. We last met Abe during the launch of Professor N. Rangabhashian's biography, Ward 10, at Taj. And I remember us having a lovely time over a cup of tea and some hot budgies. I'm always very fond of reading Abe's quotations, and one of those I like a lot is, though I'm fascinated by knowledge, I'm more fascinated by wisdom. I think what is important is if a person can discern the difference between knowledge and wisdom, then that is the right person to be with. Thank you very much, Abe, for joining us. Dr. Ram Subramaniam, to many of us who have known him from childhood, he is Sridhar. I often get confused in my contact list when I look for Sridhar and I'm trying to forward Ram Subramaniam's number to somebody. Son of Venkatu uncle and Radha auntie, Venkatu uncle, Krishna uncle, and my dad were very, very close friends. When Ram Sub decided to specialize in ID, I know that all three of them had some kind of a, they were not too happy about his specialization, but I know that Ram Sub was very, very sure ID would be the future. And he did join the Liverpool School of Tropical Medicine. And today I'm very, very happy and proud of his achievements. Thank you very much, Ram Sub, for joining us. Mallika Janakiraman, very fond childhood memories. We have had very lovely times together in Perambur when we were children. My parents always looked forward to her visits from Mumbai and Delhi. Her official visits, she was entitled to 5-star accommodation, but she always came and stayed with us. She too is a perfectionist in many ways, very enterprising, enthusiastic, full of ideas, which she always will make sure that she implements. When she decided to settle in New Zealand, it was a little sad for us. We do miss her a lot, but then now today we know that distances mean nothing. The target team of doctors who in 2005 approached me soon after my dad passed away and said we should form a group, we should start a teaching program, especially for postgraduates and young radiologists. It should be subsidized so that everybody can afford it. And yes, we did start in 2005. And when this happened, I think it was a very successful series of programs that we were conducting. The target family, number of people have joined in, and some, of course, deserve special mention. This is the very impressive list of orations that we have done from 2005. And initially, we had themed programs for each system in the body. And we have had the best of faculty from all over the world join us and deliver these orations. So this is the very, very impressive list that we have to offer all of you. In 2018, I thought, yes, we have a foundation for academic activities, but why not start something charitable? And that is when we started the Kausalya Gajaraj Charitable Trust. We initially started this more for medical help to the needy, but I am now planning to expand this and encompass all other activities like schooling and any other form of help that anyone may need. You can see we have Natpu, Daya, and Kodai, which actually embodies what both of them lived for. That is friendship, giving to others easily, and a lot of empathy for people around you. And we hope as a group, we will continue to do this. While we are here, I would just like to dedicate the next few seconds to the memory of two people who are not with us today. My very dear cousin, Hema Satyamurthy, who passed away in March, and Karu, or Dr. Karnakaran, from the batch of 73 MMC, who passed away a few days ago. We remember both of you, and we hope that you will rest in peace and continue to be with us always. This is the program that we will be going through. We'll start very shortly. Kindly stay with us till the very end, and you will be given a mail ID on which you could please send your feedback. We would very much love to have your feedback. Thank you very much once again for joining us from all over the globe. Enjoy the program. Thank you. Mask to start the.
Dr. Jayashree. To invoke blessings onto this beautiful morning, may I now request Ms. Sindhuja Shekhar to lead us into prayer with the beautiful rendition of Sriman Narayana.
Sriman Narayana, Sriman Narayana, Shri Padame Sharanam. Sriman Narayana, Sriman Narayana, Sriman Narayana, Shri Padame Sharanam. Kamala Sati Mukha, Kamala Kamala Hita, Kamala Priya, Kamalekshana. Kamala Sati Mukha, Kamala Kamala Hita, Kamala Priya, Kamalekshana. Kamalasana Hita, Karuda Kamana Shri, Kamalasana Hita, Karuda Kamana Shri, Kamalanavane, Padakamala Me Sharanam. Sriman Narayana, Sriman Narayana, Sriman Narayana, Shri Padame Sharanam.
Thank you, Ms. Sinduja, for that divine rendition of Sriman Narayana. Light symbolizes brightness and prosperity. It removes the forces of darkness and gives us positivity. In a spiritual world, light means life. With that thought, may I now request Dr. Lalita Kesavan, or as we dearly call her, Lali Auntie, Mrs. Suroja Balachandran, Dr. Vijay Lakshmi Sudhakar, and Ms. Preeti Sudhakar to light the lamp.
On that auspicious note, I now invite Dr. Nivedita Bharati, obstetrician and gynecologist at the Apollo Cancer Institute and MGM Healthcare, and a dear member of our AGR family, to welcome our guest of honor, Dr. Rama Subramanian.
Good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure and privilege to introduce our guest of honor, Dr. V. Ramasubramanian. Dr. V. Ramasubramanian is a specialist in infectious diseases, adolescent and adult vaccination, and travel medicine. He is currently a senior consultant in infectious diseases, HIV, and tropical medicine at Apollo Hospitals, Chennai, and a professor of infectious diseases at various institutions across Chennai. A graduate from Madras Medical College, he went to the prestigious Postgraduate Institute at Chandigarh for his post-graduation in internal medicine. Subsequently, he became a member of the Royal College of Physicians, UK, and also obtained diplomas in tropical medicine and hygiene and in genitourinary medicine. On his return to India, he has played a pioneering role in establishing infectious diseases as a specialty. He is passionate about infection control and has been instrumental in laying down principles of infection control in several hospitals. He is an excellent teacher and most sought after speaker in many academic fora. In 2008, he founded Immune Boosters, a unique clinic dedicated to adolescent and adult vaccination and travel health, the first of its kind in India. He is the founder director of a multi-speciality family outpatient clinic, the Capstone Clinic. He has many research publications to his credit, authored several chapters in textbooks, and has been part of several international drug trials. I feel very proud to present to you our guest of honor, Dr. V. Ramasubramanian.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jayashree. Thank you for the kind words of introduction, Dr. Bharti. And it's a pleasure to be with you this morning and brings back fond memories of Gajaraj uncle when he used to visit our homes during...
Can you share your screen, Ram? So please, sorry to interrupt.
I don't have a presentation. I'm just going to speak a few words.
We'd like to see you.
Oh, I'm here.
Jessica, we're able to see.
You're able to see? Okay, fine. I've got it.
Okay.
Yes, Ramsub. Sorry, thanks.
Yeah, so I remember those with fond, fondness, the days where when I was in school, when we used to have get-togethers at our house during dinner times periodically. So it's a pleasure to be here this morning with all of you. I'm going to be very brief in my talk for about 5 minutes or so, sharing my thoughts about this pandemic. We are now fighting an unseen enemy. By the statistics which I read in the papers this morning, there have been over 16 million cases of COVID-19 and over 600,000 deaths. Pandemics and epidemics have always been only the favorites of historians. Nobody else bothered much about them. But one thing was that every epidemic had a dramatic aspect, a desire to assign responsibility. And that has been so in this case also, whether it is Trump or whether it is, Stalin from Chennai, everybody is interested in ensuring who should be made the scapegoat for.
Dr. Ram, can you please unmute yourself, please? So we just lost the last one, a couple of seconds.
Okay. So I said that there has always been, with all pandemics, a dramatic aspect, that is the desire to assign responsibility. And it started off with China being made responsible and then has spread to Trump, and then maybe Stalin has blamed several people in Tamil Nadu. So that has gone on. But if we look at how this pandemic will end, it is said that every pandemic has two ends. One is the social end, when we will accept the pandemic and move on with life, which is what is happening in most countries in the world right now. And the other is the medical end, when the actual cases start coming down and when we can say that the virus is out of this world. And to look at the medical end to the pandemic, that can happen only in two ways. One, if there is a herd immunity and a 60 to 70% of the population have been infected, so that this immunity in the herd will protect the other 30 to 40%. Or if there is a vaccine available, which by immunizing everybody in the world, the immunity level can be brought up to this herd immunity status. Now, both of them looks quite far off. Realistically speaking, even though the vaccine is said to be coming out in a few months' time, I think it will take at least 12 to 18 months before we can identify an efficacious and a safe vaccine, which will be available. The production has to be ramped up to ensure that a great number of the world population can access the vaccine. So both of them seem far in front. I recently read an article by Akhil Bilgrami, a professor of philosophy in Columbia University. And he mentioned in that the humankind has two traits or two strong dispositions. One is that the ability to analyze things and anticipate or predict the future so that they can take remedial actions to keep ourselves safe. And the other trait he mentions is something he calls the cognitive generosity, or the ability to share knowledge, which has exploded in the last couple of decades with the computers and the IT and the communication sector. And if we put both together, that is the ability to anticipate and take remedial action, and the fact that we can share our knowledge with everybody, this pandemic should have never happened. Or even if it had started, it would have been very easy to stop this pandemic. But somehow we have failed in that. And he believes the reason is probably there is a stronger disposition, which he labels as greed. Our personal benefit should be there in whatever we do. So this is the reason why we have not done it. And because of the personal need, public health has unfortunately been left far behind. And it is the failure of public health, which we can call, is the reason that we are in this situation. Even in the presence of public health of several countries, we have still not done well, probably because of certain cognitive biases. We realize that as humankind, our mind is trained to think in a fashion that we look at the present situation rather than anticipating what can happen in the future. So this is called the present bias. And also we can refer it to as the immediate victim error, where we know very clearly that if we can invest our time and money in public health and ensuring people stay physically distanced and wear masks, will definitely save much more lives than ventilators. We still invest in ventilators so that we can save the few lives which, of people who are dying around us. So all these make public health, unfortunately, in a very sad state of affairs now. And probably the way to future is to ensure that this is strengthened. So how do we face the future? One, we can say that we need to have hopeful optimism, but unfortunately, hope is not a strategy, and we need to have some practical interventions in mind. One would be to ensure that we test significant number of population and isolate them. We've also realized that we need to do contact tracing, because unlike the SARS of 2002, which gave us at least 4 days after the patient developed symptoms before it spread to the others, this COVID-19 actually starts spreading even 2 days before the person manifests symptoms. So it becomes very difficult, and contact tracing and quarantine is a very important part. The third and the most important intervention is physical distancing and masking, which should be universal to protect everybody. And lastly, we will see in the future that travel is where we need to concentrate on to ensure that second and third waves don't come back. So I would like to leave you with the words that those who forget to remember the past are condemned to repeat it, the words of George Santayana. And I think we have to learn our lessons. And as we embrace the new normal, I think we need to invest in public health. We need to understand that thinking in future and ensuring physical distancing and safe universal masking becomes a way of life so that we can embrace the new normal. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ram. May I now invite Mrs. Mutharagi, Vice President, Global Customer Support at Ramco Systems, Chennai, and a dear grandniece of Professor Arkad Gajraj, to welcome Mrs. Mallika Janakiraman, who will then take us down memory lane with cherished memories of her time with the Gajraj family.
Good morning, everyone. I deem it a blessing to be part of this Target family for the past 15 years. And today, I'm privileged to introduce Mrs. Mallika Janakiraman, called as Malli Akka, to walk down memory lane of her fond memories with Gajraj uncle and Dolly auntie, which she treasures forever. Malli Akka is currently operating as strategic advisor at Healthy Babies, Healthy Future. She is a fond niece of Mrs. Kausalya Gajraj, Dolly auntie, and a wonderful cousin of Dr. Deshri. Her credentials include creating nutrition propositions like the Iron Shakti campaign for Kellogg's, and has also had an insightful experience at Nestle and PepsiCo. She has recently started a YouTube channel to inspire and cook healthy, named as First 1000 Days and Beyond. And this has caught the eyes of many in Facebook. Inviting you, Mallika, to walk down memory lane and cherish your fond memories with AGR family. Thank you all. Let's stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank you. Thank you, Muthu. Thank you, Jay. I was struggling not to get emotional, and I hope I don't get emotional for the next 5 minutes at least. Good evening, everyone. It's been a privilege and actually an honor to be part of this day and an event and sharing the cyberspace with so many people all across the globe and eminent speakers who will be talking about various aspects of the situation that we are in. And of course, when I looked at all the speakers and with Professor Ravi going to talk on giving the oration talk, I'm sure today's session is going to be having more reasons to go viral than any other day. I take this opportunity to take you on a visual journey and take you through the memory lane. I wanted to ask Jayashree and negotiate with her for a highway rather than a lane because there was so much to talk about uncle and auntie. But yes, I would do the highlights today, but always drop in New Zealand and we can share a fine wine as well as scotch to discuss what they meant to us and our lives. Memories do flood, and I'm going to share my screen as we... Sorry. Can you see my screen?
Not yet,
No,
Sandy.
not yet. Okay, yeah, it should come now.
Yes, we can see it now.
So I'll just put you on. So the talk was to be just share with you, as I said, take you through the cyberspace on a virtual journey down the memory lane. Jayashree did a beautiful introduction about how he was such a self-made man. And I think that's what inspired each of us growing up to know him in person. Target is a proof in itself. It's an honor. It's actually a gratitude that we are paying every year. And so fast, 16 years have passed. I moved to New Zealand about 10 years back. And every time it was always a desire to be part of this Target. And now the virtual reality makes it possible. When someone you love becomes a memory, the memory becomes a treasure. And I think it's the case not just for me, but everyone who's just joined us today. Today is another day and an opportunity to do so. And I know there's going to be many more with the excellent team that's setting up the event year after year. Let me begin with my childhood impressions of Uncle. I'm known as Malli to most of my family. And being in Chennai, there used to be a joke always. There's a Malli pattu paisa oru moram, So that's how people used to joke. And Professor Dr. Gejraj or Professor Gejraj for us has always been uncle. And he always would have an affectionate pinch on the cheek when he meets you. And yesterday when I was discussing with Muthu, I said, do you know this? And she said, yes, we remember this very, very clearly. He was available to everyone. And as Jay said, that Anna Nagar was an abode of inspiration. My professional impact happened when I was doing a course in nutrition, and Uncle had just given a lecture at the Women's Christian College linking diet with cancer. And then he gave me the proceedings and he said, read this and start working on cancer. Being what I am and understanding my own ability, I wanted to go beyond and become a behavioral nutritionist and look at preventive nutrition. Such were the traits that inspired me to be a person who values integrity and friendship, and it's still a long way to go for me. This is an interesting, believing is seeing is what I understood. And there was a very nice documentary about three people, a blind person, amputated person climbing the Alps. And it was just because of their belief, because they couldn't see or they were handicapped. Being with uncle for us was always that. We just had to hear him and do it rather than even questioning why we were told to do so. This is a very personal thing, and I think I've taken the courage to discuss this openly today. When I was pregnant the second time around, a complication made me visit a radiologist in Hyderabad. And the results were definitely not encouraging. Not knowing what it meant, not knowing what the outcomes was, we realized that the baby girl who she was had spina bifida. The next thing I remember was to call uncle and ask him what to do. It was such a challenging moment for us, a very difficult time. And his guidance was enough for us to make that difficult decision in our life. Even today, there is sadness, but there's no guilt because he guided us. And that is what was belief all about, trust all about. And this is what we know what to do when he says what to do. Another thing all of you would share, my family, my friends, and my uncles, that with uncle and auntie, the mantra was, you matter, everyone matters. It was it's about one of the beautiful ways that they would anchor the crowd at Ananagar. And we would be there most of the time. And it was a very spirited place. I meant this because uncle loved his scotch in the evenings, and auntie would make those gourmet starters. And each time it used to be a pleasant experience to sort of be with them. I would also look at it and say it was a mini Senate. And even oppositions who met on that floor would be behaving with dignity and decor. It was actually a lesson to learn. And I always think if only he wrote a book of how to influence people and keep them calm, I think we would be facing the COVID situation much better. A lasting impression was in 1999 when we came to Chennai from Bombay for Karthik, my son's +2 admission. Being the middle class family, all of us wanted them to get into IIT. Medicine was not the strength that we had. And we put him in a SBOA school in Ananagar, but the hostel was pathetic. When we struggled to find accommodation, uncle took my husband aside because, I have my own, obstinate behavior. So he called my husband and said, give me the opportunity to look after my grandson. What profound words, worthy of such a human being. A moment of truth played a huge role in transforming a young Mumbai boy to see beyond his family. And that boy is Karthik. People would say you're born single and you don't know how to be with people. But this was not true for uncle. He was born single, but never, ever alone. The legacy continues. We all know that a mediocre teacher tells, the good teacher explains, the superior teacher demonstrates, a great teacher inspires. If we could have a great team, we could have a global presence today in a webinar. Uncle would be a true example for this. And of course, as I said, the legacy continues with my cousin Jay. Being a doctor and a professional, we see beyond that when we meet her. She's taking the legacy far beyond, far more than we would ever thought or think. One is Target, which she set up 16 years ago. And each time I have seen how well the whole event has been managed, professionally, perfect to the core. So I said, let me search Google and see what it throws up. And it threw up 568,000 results in a split 0.43 seconds. And that is going to grow and grow and grow. Of course, she has the Mangai Women's Exclusive, which is very dear to me because of my passion for the first 1,000 days. And she's also set up another trust in the name of auntie and uncle. All roads will and will always lead to the abode of inspiration, Ananagar I3 Ananagar. And we will celebrate Jayashree, if you think so. The 20 years can be on a Norwegian cruise, and Target could be the one to show us the way on this cruise, because uncle always wanted to go on a cruise, and he's been discussing, and I believe that he even got his ticket booked, or he was asking for the details. And of course, he had his last moments. So distances don't matter. And this is an opportunity for me as a person, for me and my family. We owe it to uncle, auntie, and Jayashree, because whatever happens, wherever we are still bound by this gratitude. And we can only express it in 2 words: thank you, and we're always there. So in any language, it's thank you. But Kiora from New Zealand, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mrs. Mallika, for taking us all through the fond memories. I now invite Mrs. Vijayalakshmi Jayakumar, Coordinator, International Baccalaureate Diploma Program and Faculty of Mathematics at the International School, Bangalore, and a dear grandniece of Professor Arkad Gejraj, to welcome our chief guest, Dr. Abraham Verghese.
Good morning, everyone. I'm privileged to introduce our chief guest, Professor Abraham Verghese, MD, MFA, MACP, DSc Honours, Professor of Medicine, Stanford University, Senior Associate, Chair of the Department of Internal Medicine, California, USA. Professor Verghese is the Director, Presence. Professor Abraham Verghese is an American physician, author, professor for the theory and practice of medicine at Stanford University Medical School and senior associate, chair of the Department of Internal Medicine. Professor Verghese began his medical training in Ethiopia, but his education was interrupted during the civil unrest. He migrated to the United States with his family. He worked as an orderly for a year before going to India, where he completed his medical studies at Madras Medical College in the batch of 1973. In his written work, he refers to his time working as an orderly in a hospital in America as deeply influential. He has said the insights he gained from his work helped him become a more empathic physician and resulted in the motto, imagining the patient's experience. That defined his later work at the Center for Medical Humanities and Ethics in San Antonio. After finishing his medical degree and internship from Madras University in 1979, he went to the United States to continue his service. His interest is in clinical skills and the bedside exam, both in its technical aspects, but also in the importance of the ritual and what is conveyed by the physician's presence and technique at the bedside. This work interests him from an educational point of view and also from the point of view of ethnographic studies related to the rituals and how they transform the patient-physician relationship. Professor Abraham Verghese has been honored with a number of awards for his accomplishments. Professor Verghese is also awarded the Lambda Literary Award for his work My Own Country in 1995, Welcome Book Prize Shortlist for Cutting for Stone 2009. The Target Foundation is honored to have Professor Abraham Verghese as our chief guest for the 16th Professor Arkad Gejraj Memorial Oration. May I now invite Professor Abraham Verghese to to grace the occasion by delivering his chief guest address. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction. Can you all hear me all right?
All well, Doctor.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm deeply, deeply honored to be the chief guest for this 16th Professor Arkad Gajraj Memorial Oration. I'm especially touched because the person who invited me to be part of this is my classmate, Jayashree Gajraj. I'm also thrilled that we'll be hearing from another one of our classmates, Professor V. Ravi. I'm so proud of both of them. I also know that many of my classmates are attending this meeting, and I send them my very warmest greetings. Ladies and gentlemen, we find ourselves at a very strange moment in history, one that I can safely say none of us have ever experienced before. The novelist and philosopher Albert Camus wrote a famous novel called La Peste in French and The Plague in English. And it's a book I admired a long time ago, but now, of course, it's immensely popular in light of the times we live in. Every single thing we're experiencing with this plague, strangely, Camus describes in his novel, including the denial, the confusion, the missteps, the heroism. I think SARS took us by surprise, and I'm reminded of a passage in The Plague where he says, "There have been as many plagues as wars in history, yet always plagues and wars take people equally by surprise." The truth is we've been predicting a pandemic for a long time, and perhaps we thought we were prepared, but we clearly weren't prepared, at least for the societal reactions in this day and age. The nature of this virus is really peculiar and quite unique, as I'm sure you'll hear from Ravi shortly. The fact that it manages to cause severe disease, enough to put people on ventilators, enough to kill them, but in others only milder disease, and in some no visible disease at all, makes it particularly effective in terms of transmission. If you look at the story from the point of view of the virus, as opposed to our point of view, it is clear that this virus is quite democratic, and it pays no mind to political divisions, to the divisions of national borders, or rich or poor, or caste or creed. It has, in a strange way, united all of us in appreciating our vulnerability as a species, as a human race, the absolute need for us to come together. For that reason, it is inconceivable to me that my adopted country, America, has elected to pull out of the WHO. I think it's a very, very short-sighted decision meant to cover up political missteps. If the virus is teaching us one thing, it is that we have to respond as one people, not as individual countries. Don't worry, I'm not going to get any more political than that. The good news, as you will hear tonight, I hope, is the mind-boggling pace of scientific discovery. Within 1 week of this virus being identified, the entire genome was published, and very quickly we knew what receptors it tagged onto. And now already we have several vaccines in trial and many other trials. I'm part of a group at Stanford that is part of many different trials of monoclonal antibodies and so on. So every single day we're getting better at managing the hospitalized patient. We're still a long ways from getting better at preventing the infection from spreading, as you heard earlier. But the science is really the good news in this very, very dark story. In that regard, my classmate V. Ravi is truly at the cutting edge of that science. I always admired the fact that he came to medical school already intent on studying virology, having seen a viral illness take the life of his young sister. I'm so proud of his commitment. I'm so proud to have watched his career. I'm so proud to see where he is tonight. He is truly one of the preeminent virologists in the world, and certainly in India. In closing, I want to tell you that whatever professional success I have had has really come from the wonderful training in Madras at Madras Medical College, with incredible professors such as K.V. Thiruvengadam, Professor Rangabashyam, in surgery, and Professor Gajraj. I did not have as much exposure to Professor Gajraj as I did to some of the others, but I remember one of his classes and his very dapper way of carrying himself and the absolutely engaging way he had of teaching, of pulling us in. In researching this lecture tonight, I found that Professor Gajraj had attended Madras Christian College, and I had the privilege of going there as well, yet another level of connection. Clearly, teaching was his passion, and clearly he's left a wonderful legacy in the form of institutions that he grew and led, in the form of his many trainees, and many other pioneering firsts. This oration in his memory is so very fitting, and I'm very honored to be part of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Abraham Verghese. May I now invite Mr. Prabhakar Kesavan, Regional General Manager, Voltis, Dubai, and a dear grandnephew of Professor Arkad Gajraj, to now present the 16th Professor Arkad Gajraj Memorial Oration to Professor Vasantapuram Ravi.
The Target Foundation deems it an honor to present the 16th Professor Arkad Gajraj Memorial Oration to Professor Vasantapuram Ravi, MD, FAMS, FASC. Professor V. Ravi graduated from the renowned Madras Medical College in 1978 and completed his MD Microbiology from JIPMER, Pondicherry in 1983. He established the Department of Neurovirology at NIMHANS in 1985 and is currently Senior Professor and the Head of Department. His research areas include public health virology, outbreak investigation, development of indigenous diagnostics, acute encephalitis syndrome, biology, pathogenesis and immune response to JEV, chikungunya and dengue, subacute sclerosing panencephalitis, HIV and neuro-AIDS, and immunology of psychiatric diseases. Professor Ravi is a recipient of 25 research grants from national and international funding agencies, ICMR, DBT, DST, CISR from India, and Indo-USA Vaccine Action Program, NIH and CDC, USA, and MRC, University of Liverpool, and National Institute of Health Research, UK. He has published over 160 papers, including 25 chapters in books, and he has compiled, edited, and authored monographs for WHO on virology. He holds a European patent on Cysticercosis cellulose diagnostic development. In collaboration with Zyton Diagnostics Private Limited, Bangalore, he has developed commercial ELISA assays for HIV, HCV, and JEV. He has mentored 25 PhD students and several others as a guide for MD Psychiatry and DM Neurology dissertations. He has served as a PhD examiner for all major institutions in the country, such as AIMS and many more. Professor Ravi has been elected to several fellowships: WHO Fellowships USA in 1992, Commonwealth Medical Fellowship UK in 1995-96, Fellow of National Academy of Medical Sciences in 2009, Fellow of Indian Academy of Sciences in 2010, and very recently as Distinguished International Fellow by the American Society of Tropical Medicine and Hygiene. He has also been a WHO short-term professional SEARO, International Examiner for MD Virology, Program of MRI Sri Lanka since 2007, and Visiting Professor Microbiology and Immunology, University of Liverpool, UK since 2013. He was awarded the Sir C.V. Raman Young Scientist Award by the Government of Karnataka in 2000, the Dr. J.B. Srivastav Oration Award by ICMR for Eminent Medical Virologist in 1997, the Dr. S.C. Agarwal Oration Award of IAMM 2008, the Eminent Medical Virologist Award of Indian Virological Society in 2013, and the Dr. H.I. Jala Award of IMM in 2016. Professor Ravi has served the Indian Association of Medical Microbiologists for 10 years in various capacities, as EC member during 2000-2002, Joint Secretary during 2003-2005, Secretary during 2005-2007, and President in 2011. He was also the founder quiz master of IAMM for 6 years. He is a COVID-19 task force member for the state of Karnataka, ICMR mentor for COVID-19 testing labs, and has served as an expert for various task force and scientific advisory committees of WHO and other organizations. On this 26th day of July 2020, the Target Foundation is privileged to award the 16th Professor Arcot Gajaraj Memorial Oration to Professor Vasantapuram Ravi, MD, FAMS, FASC.
Good morning. Can you all hear me?
Yes, Doctor, all well.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to friends across the globe. It's a great honor and a privilege to be conferred an oration in the name of one's teacher. I think a student can't ask for anything more than that. And I'm very privileged to join the distinguished list of orators, many of whom have been my seniors. Professor Trivandrum, of course, was my beloved teacher. So I think it's a great honor. Let me thank Dr. Jayashree, my dear friend Jayesh, for having selected me for this oration. I hope I will try to do some justice to the award that is conferred on me. I'll start my oration. Just give me a minute. I'll share my screen. I hope all of you are able to see the screen. I've entitled my oration as COVID-19 Lessons Learned, Challenges and Opportunities. Before I start my oration, I would like to pay my humble respects to my teacher, Professor Arcot Gajaraj, who is an icon in radiology and imaging. I very fondly remember a 1-hour class he took when I was an undergraduate. It was a discussion actually on how to read a chest X-ray. I didn't know that beyond lung shadows, there were a myriad of things in a chest X-ray that one could appreciate. And like Sherlock Holmes, he taught the fine nuances of picking up in great detail what the shadows can teach us. I think that's something that has imprinted in my memory and also helped me in a great deal in applying such technology in whatever you do in life. So I would like to pay my tributes to my teacher and start with a disclaimer. I'm not a COVID-19 expert. I don't think anyone is. The virus is new, the disease is new, and we are all learning. A large part of this presentation is based on personal experience of handling outbreaks over the last 4 decades. I certainly will not use information from the world's largest unregulated open university, which people call WhatsApp. I have no commercial or financial interest to declare, and the opinions expressed in this presentation are entirely mine and thus not definitely of my employer. I have organized the presentation into various sections. I'll give a brief introduction. I'll tell you the lessons learned in terms of virology, epidemiology, how the disease is produced, treatment, a touch on. I will not be talking on treatment. There are 2 distinguished clinicians, both Abe and Ram, who will probably are better to talk on these. I'll focus on challenges and opportunities under 4 cross-cutting themes: challenges and opportunities in epidemiology, in the clinical field, laboratory testing, in the social sector, and in prevention. And I'll end with a summary and acknowledgements. Let me start by telling you that this is where we stand in 2020. Over the past century, humanity has witnessed the emergence of a number of zoonotic viral infections. What are zoonotic viral infections? They exist in nature, in animals and birds, and they spill over to human beings. These are the tombstones that you see from 1918. It's a century and 2 years since the largest viral zoonotic illness hit the globe that we know of in human history, the Spanish flu, which contributed to 50 million deaths. And since then, we have had, of course, a large number of them. I had the fortune of working with at least 4 of these zoonotic illnesses, starting from encephalitis, which is not here on this list because it's an Asian problem, then HIV, then the influenza outbreak, the swine flu in 2009, and now, of course, the COVID. What do we know about coronaviruses? Coronaviruses are enveloped. They have an outer lipid envelope, and they have surface projections, as you can see on the left in the screen, much resembling a crown. Under the electron microscope, if you see this virus, it has these projections, and that's why it was called corona. It's an RNA virus, meaning the genetic material is RNA in these viruses, and it's distributed widely in nature, in humans, mammals, and birds. For 50 to 60 years, we knew about 4 coronaviruses: 229E, OC43, NL63, and HK121, and these are being known to cause very mild flu-like illness, and some of them cause diarrhea. It was in the turn of this century that the severe acute respiratory syndrome emerged from southern China and spread across the globe, and the virus that caused it was called SARS virus, and its cousin emerged in the Middle East in 2012, and it's called the Middle East Respiratory Syndrome virus, or the MERS coronavirus. They have a lot of genetic diversity, and frequently they jump species, and these are called spillover events. And if you look at the coronaviruses in general, there are 2 natural reservoirs of coronavirus. One is the bat, and the other is the rodent species. Bats harbor a large number of coronaviruses, and over the last 20-30 years, it has spilled over to other animals which have acted as intermediate hosts. The SARS coronavirus was transmitted to a pig. The MERS coronavirus is from the bat to a camel, and from camel to human beings. That was the spillover. And the current SARS-CoV-2 was a spillover from bat into a pangolin, which is the anteater family, and then from there to human beings. We cross species. COVID-19 is the name of the disease, while severe acute respiratory syndrome, coronavirus 2, is the name of the virus that produces the disease. The virus is a large virus for an RNA virus. It measures approximately 60 to 120 nanometers. It is more or less spherical. It has an outer protein shell, which is covered by a lipid envelope. Envelope is nothing but a coat, like human beings wear a coat. On the surface embedded is this spike protein, which looks like a common pin. And this is a very important protein, and we'll come to that shortly. The genome of coronavirus is about 30,000 nucleotides long. It is RNA. It's a positive strand RNA, which means that if you introduce the RNA into a cell, it can directly go into translation and make proteins. The spike protein, or the surface protein of coronavirus, is the most important protein. This is the three-dimensional structure. It has been crystallized. It has two portions, a head, which is globular, and a stem. The head contains a portion that has been enlarged in the window here, which is called the receptor binding domain, or RBD. Basically, this protein acts as the key to unlock human cells and then enter human cells. There are a number of other coronaviral proteins known as non-structural proteins, and many of them have a very profound influence on the way the human defense system responds. How does coronavirus enter? As I said, coronaviruses use the spike protein to attach to specific receptors in the human body. And this is important to remember because this receptor is the angiotensin converting enzyme 2, which is a receptor that exists not for the virus, but as part of the physiology of human beings, in which a large number of blood pressure control activities related by this receptor. And very interestingly, it has been very recently found in a publication that the highest density of this receptor, that means the lock into which the virus engages as a key, is in the human gut. It's in the human kidneys. It's also found in testis, and it is expressed in the lungs, the heart, and it's expressed more in the lungs of smokers. So that's how they're at a higher risk. And it's also found in blood vessels. So this explains why the virus can spread to all parts of the disease. Moving on to transmission of the virus, it's predominantly droplet mediated. There is some evidence now to say in closed spaces, airborne transmission can occur. But by and large, the transmission is by droplets. When an infected person sneezes or coughs, he tends to release, as shown in this cartoon here, up to about 3 to 4 feet from where he is standing, releases micro droplets that can be transmitted to a person through the eye, nose, or the mouth. And this also shows you this cartoon on what are the risks of not wearing a mask and what is the risk when somebody wears a mask. Considerable transmission is occurring most often in close contacts, and we'll come to that a little later. I'll share with you the epidemiology of COVID-19 in Karnataka. This is the map of Karnataka. What you see here is a heat map. A heat map, the scale is given on top. Large number of cases, the district or the area will be covered, will be colored red. When there are no cases, it will be green, and in between are districts with various prevalences. Bangalore is the worst affected district in the entire state. The northern districts of Karnataka also have had a large number of cases because of their proximity to Maharashtra. The coastal areas, especially Udupi and Dakshin Kannada, have had a lot of influx of migrants. and so also in Mandya. The point I want to make on this slide is more importantly on the right. Among the 3,404 patients that we analyzed prior to lifting of the lockdown on June 1st in Karnataka, 3,096 were asymptomatic, much similar to what is being seen in the rest of the world. And most of the asymptomatic people were in the age group of 16 to 50, whereas the symptomatics, which accounted for a total of 308, were predominantly in the age group above 60 years. The second table in the middle tells you the status of these patients. Majority of the asymptomatics have been discharged and they no longer have active disease. Mortality was significantly higher in people who are symptomatic, and those especially with comorbidities. As you can see where I'm pointing the arrow, it is tenfold higher. Comorbidities are higher and mortality is higher in symptomatics. But more interestingly, when we did the cluster analysis, a cluster is defined as a collection of patients in which there is a source patient. Now, this is a cluster map that we have done through a statistical program. It looks beautiful like a rangoli. I want to explain this cluster to you. In the center of a cluster, you see some red color, and in others, the circles are yellow. The red color depicts people who are symptomatic and who actually started this cluster. They were the source patients. As you can see in this analysis of 144 source patients, majority of them, the center of a cluster is red, meaning an infectious person or a symptomatic person was responsible for initiating the cluster, and that is explained in the table. The number of clusters any symptomatic person could transmit disease to was average 33 clusters, and here it is 14 clusters. More importantly, the ability to disperse to others was 19.4 for a symptomatic patient compared to an asymptomatic patient who usually gives it only to 3 or 4 people. And more importantly, the cycle does not sustain beyond the close contacts in asymptomatic, whereas the cycles are transmitted to 3 or 4 cycles when it's symptomatic. I think this is a very, very important lesson that I learned, saying that symptomatic people are the people who are driving the epidemic. Asymptomatics also transmit, but they're good to have in society. They're going to build herd immunity. We also have done genetic sequencing of 47 isolates from clinical samples, and this is a very complex diagram. I try and simplify for you. This on the left top shows you the type of genetic variants that we found in the state of Karnataka. We have sequenced and found 6 different clades or species or subspecies, if you want to use the term as a common term, but they're called clades. And they range from A, B, B.1, B.6, and B.4. The bottom panel here tells you the time course of these clusters. The reason I put it up is the top cluster, which is purple, was a unique cluster to Karnataka. It was a cluster that broke out in a pharmaceutical company, and the isolate, when sequenced, was very close to European isolates. Whereas the larger orange bars you see here are the B and B6 clades, which more were closer to the Asian clusters. And on the right here, you'll see again a cluster differentiation diagram telling you the distribution of the various clusters. The largest genetic variety that we found in our state were B.1 and B.6. So this is information. Although Karnataka did exceedingly well until the lockdown was in force, once the lockdown was lifted, all hell broke loose. And today, we are not proud of what we have. We are the third district as of today, third state as of today in India to have highest number of cases. Our deaths per million are 15.5. It used to be 2 before the lockdown. We have our rate of testing has fallen down. We used to be on the top, and our test positivity rate has also climbed to beyond 6. There's a variety of reasons for this, and maybe I will touch on it later. In terms of the confirmed active and mortality, we also have done fairly badly in the last 4 weeks. And this is the data from India about 10 days back. Although there are a number of cases in India are very, very high. I think it ranks second or third now in the globe. That's because India has a large number of people. So in terms of numbers, yes. But in terms of mortality, we are doing fairly well. Our deaths per million population is 18 compared to many of the Western worlds. I think that is something that we are fortunate to have. The clinical spectrum of COVID presents with the common symptoms, which most of you are familiar: fever, cold, running nose, cough, breathlessness, fatigue, and myalgia are even increasingly reported now, and so is diarrhea and recent loss of smell or taste. The disease itself has a spectrum ranging from asymptomatic or mildly symptomatic to very critical illness of acute respiratory distress and probably death. This pyramid tells you that most of the people who get infected are going to be asymptomatic or mildly symptomatic. 10 to 15% will have moderate symptoms, and 5% of them will be very critical. If you look at the time course of development of the illness, the spectrum, on day 1, you usually start with a symptom, and then what happens is within the 3 to 4 days, if a person doesn't seek medical help, can land up with breathlessness. 2-3 days later, into a hospital, and then by the 8th or 10th day, land up with respiratory distress. The reason I'm showing you this the scale is that very early you have to seek medical help. From the death audits that we did in Karnataka for around the first 200 deaths, we found the commonest cause of death was delayed reporting to a healthcare facility at this stage when people are in respiratory distress. The adage used to be in the 50s that if you know syphilis, you know medicine. In the 80s, when I was doing my post-graduation, they said if you know HIV, you know medicine. And today, if you know COVID, you know medicine, because a recent article published 3-4 days back has beautifully elucidated the extrapulmonary manifestations of COVID. Since it is a virus that can disseminate to the entire body, so it does produce in severe forms of disease, clotting, cardiac problems, endocrine problems, skin problems, diarrheas and gut problems, hepatic problems. It affects the kidney, and of course, it is being increasingly recognized as a neurotropic virus, or which can cause neurological manifestations. One has to understand the kinetics of SARS-CoV infection. As Ram Subbu was very elegantly mentioning, virus shedding starts 2 to 3 days. This is a, let me explain this graph. This x-axis is time, and y-axis is the parameter that you measure in a patient. So just before onset of symptoms, if this black line is onset of symptoms, virus multiplies to a great level in the nose and pharynx of infected people, reaches a peak, and when virus level reaches a peak, symptoms set in, and then within a week or so, infectious virus will come down, but the virus genetic material, which is the RNA, can persist for up to 3 to 4 weeks. A lot of people think that being positive is dangerous. Being positive definitely is an indication somebody is infected, but the test that we use is detects genetic material, and it can be found even in people who are not infectious. Antibodies appear usually after a week in COVID, and for some reason, COVID is a viral infection where antibody responses are delayed and IgM responses are not very good. So how do you diagnose COVID? You can diagnose COVID by detecting viral genetic material in throat and nasopharyngeal specimens. Very recently, there have been antigen tests available which pick up viral proteins in clinical specimens. Antibody tests will only tell you that you're infected, but a very recent paper very nicely talks about the intelligent combination of using viral genetic material and antigen tests in combination with antibody tests. As you can see on the graph on the right, viral genetic material and viral proteins are very high, up to 95% of the times in the first week, and then it starts coming down. And usually virus genetic material is detected up to 4th week in most people. Antibodies, on the other hand, start developing at the end of first week and reach a peak only around the 3rd week. There is a crossover that occurs around the 9th to 12th day, and you can exploit these crossovers for diagnosis. Testing for SARS-CoV has been a challenge, and I had the privilege of being designated nodal officer for establishing labs in Karnataka. And when I was given this task in the beginning of April, there were about 10 labs. I and my colleagues at the department, we worked hard to ramp up facilities. And today I'm proud to tell you that we have 88 labs in the state of Karnataka. That's almost one lab every 1.5, every 2 days that we have been able to establish. Half of them are government labs. Antibody tests, as I said, only tell you that you have been exposed to virus. A large number of treatments are available, as Ram was mentioning, and so was Abe. You have antiviral drugs. They are not specifically for COVID. They've been borrowed from other viral infections like Ebola and influenza. Remdesivir is a drug that's being increasingly used now. There are immunomodulators like the monoclonal antibodies, which Abe alluded to, and of course, corticosteroids, which blunt inflammatory responses, and hydroxychloroquine, which is also known to be an immunomodulator. Convalescent plasma therapy is also being tried, but let me tell you, all these treatments do not cure one of COVID infection. A large number of efforts have been put into vaccines. When I last kept track, there were 184 different vaccines being developed and in various phases of trial. The most promising, of course, was the Oxford one, which Abe referred to. Hopefully, we'll have them by the end of the year. I'll close in the next 5-7 minutes, touching on challenges and opportunities. I recommend that people read this wonderful document of the World Economic Forum, which was published last month, on challenges and opportunities in the post-COVID-19 world. It's available on the net. For my own ease of presentation, I'm going to talk about challenges and opportunities in 5 heads. The epidemiological challenges in COVID have been huge. No other disease has posed such a challenge because the spread is fast. The whole cycle of infection is 14 days. And since it spreads very easily from close contact and through droplets, the biggest challenge is tracking an infected person. And this is very closely interlinked to testing. Unless you test, you won't know somebody is positive. So these two are really very, very important challenges. And for us to go over the peak or flatten the curve, as they say, one has to keep the positivity rate in any geographic area to less than 5%. Let me explain this to you, meaning that for every positive person whom you test, at least 20 people negative you should be testing. That's when you will be able to chase and catch the infected people. Karnataka was doing a great job on top of India, testing 47.4 people per positive person when things were under control in the lockdown. With a huge surge, we have lost this advantage, and that's one of the reasons we are unable to control the spread. Availability of rapid antigen tests, which is half an hour, has made things much easier for us. In all the challenges that I'll touch on, you'll see that manpower shortage and burnout is one of the phenomenons. People have been continuously working for months. In terms of clinical challenges, what I have experienced is lack of adequate number of beds. Now, on the right in the panel is a very recent article in Science published 4 days ago, which has looked carefully at the availability of beds in high income, upper middle income, lower middle income, and low income countries. And as you can see, for a country like India, which would be an LMIC or an LIC, somewhere in between, the number of ICU beds available per 100 hospital beds is about 2, not more than 2. And we also have a very acute shortage of ventilators. Whatever beds we have, we are also do not have effective management. And I think that's a huge challenge. People are struggling now to rope in private sector and then create dashboards and inform the public where beds are available. We do not have piped high flow oxygen supply, especially in district hospitals. We are trying to get them up now. That's a challenge. We do not have an effective antiviral drug, and we do not have enough sound evidence-based randomized clinical trials that have been available across the globe for us to definitely use a uniform protocol of management. And as I said, shortage of manpower, because a large number of healthcare workers are coming down with COVID and also in contact with people who are positive. So isolation and quarantine is depleting manpower. In terms of challenging, ramping up testing has been a huge challenge. The turnaround time for the gold standard test is 6 to 8 hours, and that's a huge hampering factor. There are a large number of challenges we are facing in India in terms of pre-analytical errors, meaning people while entering information into a test request are making errors, transcription errors. That's putting a lot of pressure on reporting. And poor quality of transport. People, we have seen sometimes we get leaky vials, and that's very dangerous. Data entry we have a very complicated data entry procedure and internet issues. And again, laboratories are closing down because people are turning positive. The social challenges have been the highest, I would say. It reminds me, it's very reminiscent of the HIV. I'm sure Abe would have experienced this. The reactions have been fear and panic, driven by a not so friendly media, whether it's India or across the globe. We seem to thrive in negative reports, and we don't seem to bring in positive aspects of anything. Stigma and discrimination is again something common that it shares with HIV. It's quite rampant. For any illness where there is no treatment and where there's no vaccine, people go through a number of stages. Initial is denial that I have the infection. Second is anger. Why me? There's a huge amount of anger across the globe against governments. Then people go into depression. And finally, they reach a stage of acceptance. The faster we can transcend people from denial to acceptance, the greater it will be helpful for tackling people's problems. There's a huge lack of mental health helplines and counseling services. Having said that, NIMHANS is at the forefront of it. And of course, socially, the biggest challenge has been inequities in society. The challenge for prevention is a new behavior. We are asked to stay 6 feet away from others. it's easy to say, but difficult to practice. And so also wearing masks. Wearing masks is something new for our generation. I don't think any time in our life we have worn masks, excepting some of us physicians who worked in the operation theaters and in intensive care units. At present, there's no vaccine, and that is one of the huge challenges of prevention. I think the biggest challenge is we know who are the people who get infected, we know the people who develop severe disease, and we know the people who are going to die. And these are vulnerable. And who are these? The elderly, the comorbidities, and those who are disadvantaged and marginalized populations who lived in crowded areas. I believe every calamity provides an opportunity. The optimist that I am, I think this also will pass by, and we have several opportunities. If you take epidemiological opportunities, I think this disease has brought public health to the center stage of human healthcare. Once again, reminding us that public health should be and encouraged. It should go into curriculum. We should have a cadre of trained professionals and field workers who not only can help for infectious diseases, but non-communicable diseases as well. There's huge opportunity in epidemiology for using technology. India has shown 2 different types of technologies that are proving useful. A mobile app known as Arogya Setu and a quarantine watch, which actually geofences patients who are infected in home quarantine, and if they move out, it gives alert in the war rooms. It gives us an opportunity to form local experts groups of clinicians, virologists, public health people, and administrators who should look at data every day and drive interventions. This is my favorite area of work, data-driven interventions, and I've enjoyed it for the last 40 years. It's an opportunity to improve upon communication. Honest and regular dissemination of correct information is very important. I always cite the example of Kerala, the only state where Chief Minister every evening at 6 o'clock comes and honestly says what's happening in the state. He's the first one to say that community transmission has already set in. All of us know that, but no government has come forward other than him to say that community it's not bad to have community transmission. It's good to know that you have community transmission so that you can take precautions. This COVID also emphasizes the need for starting regular syndromic surveillance. In terms of clinical, I think upgradation of healthcare facilities is the biggest opportunity I see, especially for providing ICUs and piped oxygen. In a country with 1.3 billion, our unit of healthcare, the largest tertiary, is the district, and it's pathetic that nearly 2/3 of the districts do not have more than 4 or 5 beds of intensive care in a district hospital, and many of them don't have piped oxygen. So here is an opportunity. Telemedicine has come in a big way in terms of daily consultation with positive subjects, as well as providing outpatient services in non-COVID hospitals. The opportunity again available for adopting and implementing uniform treatment guidelines, an opportunity for providing large-scale training to healthcare workers, rotation of workforce, something which we never thought about. This is given an opportunity, and of course, improving supply chain management, which we are very pathetic at. In terms of testing, it has given an opportunity for development of simpler point-of-care diagnostics. I think for the first time, COVID has brought together saying you should have a good combination of genetic tests, antigen tests, and antibody tests. Minimum testing and maximum intelligence is the mantra now. We have opportunities for ramping up Most important, I felt personally very, very gratified is the Medical Council of India has now made virology a part of medical curriculum, made it mandatory actually to establish a virology diagnostic lab in every medical school. And I think in the year that I retire, I can retire peacefully. And of course, supply chain management is something that we can improve on. The social opportunities are immense. This is a wake-up call to all politicians and government to ensure appropriate allocation of resources. All governments across the globe earmark 20 to 40% of their budget for defense. Now here is a biological war, and I think I would back for increasing allocations. We are at somewhere around 2% GDP being allocated for health in India, and I think it should go up at least fivefold. So let us hope that with this outbreak, governments across the world will allocate more for health. We have forgotten that we live not alone in this globe. We live along with animals and the environment. We have been doing a lot of lip service on One Health concept. The interaction of human beings with the environment, animals, and birds is very important. Again, for the third time or the fourth time in this century itself, in this century, I'm not talking the previous century, we have had viruses emerging because human beings have messed up with environment and with the other livestock around us. Disparities in health, I think hope COVID will provide some impetus for universal health coverage. Again, there's been lip service, not much. What we need to understand is that we need proper behavior change communication. Not all communication can change behaviors, but we have to hit at the right one. And of course, the mental health planning and disaster planning is very important. Lastly, opportunities in prevention. Everybody talks about the new normal. I would end by saying avoid three things, the three C's, and follow the three W's. Avoid closed spaces with poor ventilation, avoid crowds, avoid close contact settings. That is close range conversations like across a dining table or an office table without maintaining social distance. Please watch your distance, wear a mask always. That is the only protective equipment you have. Wash your hands frequently. Hunting down symptomatic cases is very important. I personally believe, as I showed you data, that symptomatic people are driving the outbreak. So if we can pick all of them up by aggressively looking for them in the community, testing them and isolating them, I'm sure we can go over the peak faster. It's an opportunity to develop a large number of indigenous technologies, as you can see, right from personal protection equipment to everything under the sun. India has started making now. I have personally had a great joy in advising Tata Steel and Biocon to large industries on using a risk matrix. I think in all workspaces, one should attempt doing this. It's a very nice exercise. Basically, it is an exercise to look at who has the highest exposure risk and who has the highest risk for spreading. And in your own environment, if you can classify people as to those who have a propensity to spread and those who have a propensity to acquire, this is a 2x2 table. It's easily done. This is the Tata Steel matrix that we developed. You can see the right upper corner, which is in red, are the people who have the highest risk of acquiring and spreading. And who are these people? Canteen workers, the medical services people, the security forces, and the occupational healthy staff. Now they have the highest risk of acquiring and they have contact with many people, so highest risk of spread. So what we have done in Tata Steel is for the last 3 months, every month we've been testing people to find out how the virus is spreading within the factory and developing appropriate preventive strategies. This is my last slide before I go into acknowledgements. To summarize then, SARS-CoV-2 is a new virus and no one other than those who are infected are immune. Transmission will continue to occur for a long period. The virus is here to stay. The emphasis is on social vaccine, mainly social distancing and wearing masks. I think all of us have a responsibility to engage with media to ensure positive messaging. The healthcare system and the politicians and the administrators have to ensure availability of beds. Nobody can prevent transmission. You can only minimize it. But certainly the responsibility of the state and all of us is to ensure availability of beds for those who develop symptoms and who require hospitalization. We should learn and we should message to people to protect the vulnerable populations. The so-called reverse quarantine, which people have been talking about, of protecting the elderly. And personally, I'm a great fan of data-driven interventions. I'll end with a quotation by Sharon Burrow. She's the General Secretary of International Trade Union Confederation in Brussels. COVID-19 will be remembered as the virus that stopped the world. We are living through a period that can only be described as the greatest act of solidarity in history as people give up civic freedoms to save lives. While we all agree that managing the health crisis is the overwhelming priority, the social and economic consequences are and will be dramatic in an already troubled world. I would like to end by thanking a large number of people. First of all, my family, my little sister on the left, which Dr. Jayashree alluded to. She gave me a purpose in life. I lost her when I was an intern due to acute fulminant hepatitis. And that kind of made me commit to a career in virology. My parents, Professor Balasubramaniam and my mother, my siblings, and a special mention about my eldest brother, Dr. Kumar Swami, who was my best friend and my mentor. It's nice to have a mentor at home. My wife and my children, who have been exceedingly supportive and given me so much of time to do my work and made a lot of sacrifices. JIPMER, my mentors and colleagues, where actually it shaped my career in microbiology. The fundamentals I learned from here, so I would like to thank all these people. Lastly, my institution, NIMHANS, which gave me immense scope to grow and express myself. And all this would not have been possible but for the wonderful staff that I have had, greatly committed staff who do all the work and permit me to do all the talking. Thank you all very much. Once again, thanking Dr. Jayashree and the foundation for bestowing this great honor on me. Thank Abe for his great friendship and the inspiration he has provided and the kind words he expressed. And Ram, whom I have known for a decade now, also a very great friend. And thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Dr. Ravi, for that very relevant and insightful oration. With that, we have almost come to the end of the program. May I now request Mr. Sudhakar Kesavan, a dear grandnephew of Professor Arcot Kejaraj, to render the vote of thanks.
Well, we have come to the end of what has been an excellent program amidst very trying and volatile times. I'm sure you will all agree that the topic taken up for this 16th Professor Arcot Kejaraj Memorial Oration is very much the need of the hour. It's time now to place on record our gratitude to all those who have made this oration program a great success with their wholehearted contribution and participation. I would like to begin with and extend our heartfelt thanks to Professor Dr. V. Ravi for his enlightening oration on COVID-19, the lessons learned, challenges, and opportunities. We could not have got a more appropriate person for delivering the oration on COVID-19. Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Ravi, for accepting our request and invite to participate in this event and honoring us. Our gratitude and many thanks to Professor Dr. Abraham Verghese, Professor of Medicine, Stanford University, California, US. He is also an award-winning, successful and top-selling author. His notable works being My Own Country, The Tennis Partner, and Cutting for Stone. Thank you very much, Professor, for gracing this function as the chief guest and sharing your valuable thoughts with us. Special thanks for joining us at this time in spite of the time difference and it being late night on a Saturday for you in sunny California. I would now like to express our hearty thanks to Dr. V. Ramasubramanian, Director, Capstone Multi-Speciality Clinic and Consultant, Infectious Diseases, Apollo Hospitals. Again, the best person to talk about the present pandemic. Thank you very much, Doctor. Many thanks to Mrs. Mallika Janakiraman for taking us down the memory lane and sharing her memorable thoughts about and experiences with Gajraj Uncle and Kausalya Auntie. Time now to thank the entire team of doctors and the family members of Professor Akat Gajraj, without whose efforts and support this event could not have happened in such a grand manner. The team very ably led and coordinated by our beloved Dr. Jayashree Gajraj. The success of the Target Foundation is because of all of them. Many thanks to Aishu, Sindhu and Tarun Rajesh, the most enthusiastic and efficient tech wizards of the family. We thank and much appreciate our versatile Aishu and multi-talented Sindhu for ensuring the smooth run of this program as the anchors. To move on to the senior members and friends of the family, special thanks to Dr. Gnanasekharan, Dr. Lalita Kasturi, Mrs. Saroja, Mrs. Malati Raghuraman, who is yet another enthusiastic member of our family, who has of late become an expert in audio and video editing and mixing. Thanks also to Dr. Nivedita Bharati, Prabhakar Kesavan, Dr. Vijayalakshmi Sudhakar, Muthu Rajesh, Vijayalakshmi Jayakumar, and the doctor in the making, Preeti. The contributors to the preamble section of the program for exhibiting their musical and dancing talents and keeping us engaged. Gayatri Ravi, Ishita, Ranjini, Maya and Moksha, Arvind, Meghna and Madhu. Big thanks to Mr. Rajendran and Mr. Raghuraman, who have been efficiently working behind the scene from the inception of Target, ensuring the smooth running, effective communication and managing the accounts. At this time, I would like to mention that we are missing the presence of Mr. Satyamurthy and the late Mrs. Hema Satyamurthy, who have been the custodians of the traditional Kuthuvilakku and in charge of the lamp lighting event for many years now. Thanks to Mr. Balaji and his team, the technical hosts for this program, for ensuring that the program went off smoothly and glitch-free. That too with so many participants, not only from India, but from across the globe. And finally, to all of you who participated in this program, a very big thank you from all of us. As a parting message, we are going through tough and challenging times. However, do let us believe that we all will tide over this crisis successfully and come out stronger. This can be done only if we diligently comply with the requirements of social distancing, personal hygiene, and usage of the face mask and other PPEs as necessary. Let us take care and stay safe. Thank you all once again and wish that you continue to have a great Sunday. Goodbye until we meet again next year for Target 2021. Join us now for the national anthem, specially dedicated to the frontline workers and their untiring efforts to keep us safe. Jai Hind.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल गंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य जय 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 हे
Thank you all very much for joining us and staying till the very end. We've enjoyed giving you this presentation and hope to see all of you next year in 2021. Thank you. Stay safe.
Thank you, Jayesh. Great program. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want food. I want food.
We will definitely.